right. So welcome everybody. I think that we should be live. I think now we're live. Now the view count started going. So welcome everybody. This is episode 102 of Rocket Lab Weekly. Today we have Scotto and Matt Money with us. Welcome everybody. And how was your guys' week?
I mean, a very thought-provoking week, to say the least. Not even so much necessarily in terms of the events that happened, but almost more so to do with like the response that you're seeing from certain groups and individuals. And I mean, obviously, you guys are here for Rocket Lab more than anything, but it's kind of like I don't want to just kind of dance past what happened. It's been a heavy week, especially as a father, but yeah, as it pertains to what you guys are more so here for, it's been a pretty decent week overall. I've well, as far as I saw anyways, I kind of picked up my phone here and there a couple times over the past couple days, but it's been pretty much just sat down and been spending time with the family for obvious reasons. So not the most cheerful opening, but I'm curious to hear how your guys' week went.
Yeah, I mean, mine was similar. Obviously I was very saddened from the news, but I continued with my life. But my wife took it extremely bad, surprisingly bad. Also because, like the two small kids and like losing the husband and then the reaction to it and why it happened and how senseless it was. So it was it is what it is. You know, bad things happen to good people sometimes, and but yes, the show must go on and life must go on. How was your week, Sir Matt?
Yeah, it was definitely it was definitely interesting on Wednesday. Haven't felt like that for quite some time, and it was interesting going into the office the next day because I was in New York on September 11th, which obviously has a lot of symbolism as well, and it was even scheduled before that, so I was in the Palantir office, meeting with some folks, and so I was lucky to be able to do so, and that was intentional, but it was even more of a reason to, because of what Palantir stands for, which is supporting the West and the ideologies of the West and making sure we stand for the freedom of speech and everything along those lines. It even hits harder to kind of stand behind, the ability for one to really have that ability to have freedom of discourse and not be held to the threat of violence in that respect. And so, before stream, I wasn't sure if I was going to say anything, but in reality, I mean, coming out of the discussion on Thursday with the guys at Palantir just continues to remind me, not just for the stock market reasons, but for the company reasons as a whole, why I'm so invested in the company. And it was just an interesting split. And I'm luckily my phone was locked in a room and I didn't have access to it all day on Thursday. So it was really nice to be able to kind of be away, and it was awesome in that respect because I didn't even want to look at my phone on Wednesday night. It was just like, I didn't know what to think, and so having the ability to have my phone locked away all day Thursday allowed me to kind of disconnect and then reignite my support for Palantir. Which I've taken a step away from because I've been so focused on Rocket Lab. But yeah, nice to be here and hanging out with you guys. And obviously I'm in the office, which is why I'm in a different environment. But I brought my personal laptop so that I can be sure to hang out with you guys for the hour. And then I'll be sure to get back afterwards.
Awesome. Some people think you're in the toilet, so you're confirming that this is your office, not the toilet.
Yeah, I always like to call this the Donald Trump room because it's very orange and it makes me look more orange. So as you can tell, lots of orange in here. So yes.
Okay, awesome. Well, let's do what everybody's here for and talk about our favorite stock, Rocket Lab. And let's start with the first news. Yeah, let's start with this one. So from clean room to calm down, Blue and Gold are finishing up testing in our Long Beach, California clean room before shipment back to Florida for launch to Mars. I actually checked, and there's no set date yet for the Blue Origin New Glenn flight that is launching these satellites, but the guesses are net November. So that's like 2 months away from now. And it's a very exciting Mars experience for Rocket Lab. Do you guys think that this delay is like again paid for by NASA, that they have to redo these checks and reship the products? And what do you think about this piece of news?
I don't know with certainty, but I would imagine that because of the setback, it's probably on Blue Origin or Blue Origin / NASA. I'm not sure exactly how that would split, but that'd be my interpretation of that. Especially with like, not that Rocket Lab really needs the storage right now, but I'm sure that, you know, it's probably better uses for their factory than having a little secluded section with these guys stuck in there. But I mean, it's nice to hopefully see these guys launch. I was like, last I heard it was supposed to happen like late September, but like, as you're saying, Vince, it's given that they're not even shipped out yet, probably looking at, I think November is a safe bet as well. We can agree on that. And I'm not sure how that would work. I think that would be more favorable in terms of the alignment with Mars as well, but not that it really matters when you have such a small payload in comparison to the size of New Glenn. You got a lot of extra capacity for that. So either way, happy to finally see these guys off. And I mean, it's kind of really, it's a win-win in terms of the outcome of this mission as well. Like if it's if Blue Origin isn't successful on the delivery, Rocket Lab can be like, well, maybe you should have launched on Neutron. And if Blue Origin is successful, it'll be like, all right, well, now we've got a craft on Mars. So yeah, kind of seeing that as a win-win. What are your thoughts, Matt?
I have no idea who's responsible.
All right, then we go over to the next one. So obviously, congratulations to everyone. Rocket Lab closed on a new all-time high. And I found this tweet from Space Case Taylor. I believe he's the one behind a newsletter that is free to sign up for. That is, I think it's called either the Space Newsletter or the Contrarian Viewpoint, or yeah, something like this. And I think he brings great perspective to where Rocket Lab is. So I'm just going to read it, and then we could look into your guys' opinions on this. So Rocket Lab's current 25 billion valuation is semi-defensible. SpaceX was valued at 21 billion in 2017 when it was known the company was pursuing Starlink, but before it had launched any satellites. This is similar to Rocket Lab currently being a pre-space application, but signaling it would like to get into D2D SATCOM. Both companies have had already begun diversifying their revenue at this point as well. Rocket Lab with its space systems line of business for both commercial and government customers, SpaceX with its Dragon spacecraft business for NASA. Main difference is that SpaceX had already proven partial reusability of the Falcon 9 at that valuation versus Rocket Lab is still on the verge of its maiden Neutron flight. Additionally, SpaceX was likely already generating well over 1 billion of revenue from launch, plus also receiving significant R&D funding from Dragon from NASA, versus Rocket Lab is on track for a 600 million revenue in 2025, that less than 1 billion in total in 2026 consensus estimates. The point is that there is definitely further upside for Rocket Lab longer term as it 1 matures Neutron, 2 strengthens its position as a prime defense contractor, and 3 develops some sort of space application. But the path won't be easy or quick. Rocket Lab seems to be priced for perfection right now, i.e. in lockstep with SpaceX comps. There isn't much room for execution missteps. So just quickly, the reason why I really like this is because when we started covering Rocket Lab, it was a very, very different company. And sometimes I think it's helpful to go back and look at like how other companies were valued at this, and in similar stages. And I also posted this on Twitter, and some people answered that, yeah, this is like apples to oranges. And I, to somewhat agree, I would say it's like Apple. I mean, the two companies are not the same. The time frames are not the same. So, for example, if this stage where SpaceX was worth $25 billion in 2027, there was a lot of inflation since then. So, a company at the same stage logically should be worth maybe 35 or $30 billion if you count in inflation. And it also puts into perspective where Rocket Lab is going, because SpaceX is maturing in its space applications space, and Rocket Lab is in the very beginning. So yeah, I just want to check, like, do you guys think this is a correct analysis, and do you think the valuation at this point is defensible?
I mean, I have two minds about this. Is like, one is like, I agree with the overall statement, but just to play devil's advocate, I always find it interesting. And I realize I'll probably get some hate for this. That's fine. It's just for the sake of conversation, really. I find it interesting how it's always SpaceX as the comparison, and it's never like Northrop Grumman's space division or Lockheed Martin. And granted, I know like new space versus old space, but I mean, that's really it. It's just, I don't know. At the same time, it's like saying there isn't much room for execution missteps. Like, yeah, but also to what you're saying, Vince, is like, it's not the same market. Like, 10 years ago, for example, like space wasn't hot like it is now. Let's be honest. Yeah. Like, it's like comparing an AI stock now to an AI stock 10 years ago. Like, it's going to be very different valuations as the greater market realizes like the kind of use case going forward. So yeah, like apples to apples, I guess, but or apples to oranges, I don't know the saying, but yeah, definitely a good think piece. What do you think, Matt?
I look at it almost as the first point I generally look at it is there's been so many companies that have tried to do what Rocket Lab has done that have failed and failed miserably, and there will be companies that are currently that I think people will deem as being successful or are in the market at the moment, which will eventually fall out because they will run out of the resources and ability to continue to play. And what I think that this is demonstrating is to be able to get to the success and where Rocket Lab has been and where they will be is you need an entry price of at least, if you think about it, $10 to $15 billion just to even get into a place of where Electron and the space systems business and the legacy that the companies in which Rocket Lab has acquired has been able to kind of achieve thus far. Because while, yes, they might have been able to acquire some of these companies for, say, 50, 100 million, or however many dollars, they've been able to grow those businesses exponentially since then, and have actually been able to demonstrate the ability to kind of grow some sort of S curve. And we haven't even probably hit the midstream of that S curve for a lot of those businesses. And so I think that alone warrants itself to be 10 to 15 billion. Now, if you think about the opportunity that the Falcon 9 itself presents, that alone, if you think about it, is a whole nother ball game. There is no competitor at the moment to the Falcon 9, and so if you look at Neutron, that becoming successful puts another floor on what the bottom value of what Rocket Lab could be, and that's before you even kind of break even in terms of the cash flow piece. And so I think people will be pleasantly surprised within the coming years of how much cash flow this company will actually throw off. They've, within the last 24 months, been ops cash positive or ops cash break even within $5 million almost 3 times. And so I don't think people are actually looking at the details. And it's only because they've been spending on Neutron that they haven't been ops cash positive 3 times. And so if you think about it in that perspective, once some of this Neutron spend actually subsides, it will be an ops cash positive business. And there's that piece of it. And if you think about it from a different lens, if they didn't have or if they had the billions of the Elons of the world, if they had the billions of the Bezoses of the world, sure, maybe they would have been able to get to Neutron much faster, but they didn't, and they were able to bootstrap themselves. And so the fact that they were able to keep up with the Blue Origins and the SpaceXs of the world, while those guys have B's next to their name, is impressive, right? And I think the comparison of Bezos has been able to throw $2 billion a year at Blue Origin, while the entire Neutron rocket, maybe itself, inclusive of government spending, the whole program will probably be less than $400 to $450 million, and that's including the 55 or maybe even more $1 million that have been included from the government spending side that we've known about. And so if you think about it, that is a quarter of 1 year spending at Blue Origin. And so if you think about the capital efficiency, I mean, it's just an interesting perspective to kind of look at it. And so many others have failed. So you might say, oh, well, all these other companies are valued at 4, 5, 6 billion. Well, a lot of those companies will fail. And so if you think about it, in order to be successful, it might be 1 out of 5, 1 out of 6, 1 out of 7. So to be 1 out of 6, 1 out of 7, it might be worth 20 billion, 25 billion. And that's before you actually become ops cash positive. So there's almost a floor in terms of a moat for some of these businesses. Now, keeping in mind as well, there will be potentially a premium associated with the future capital as well. And if you think about it, if you look at it from a different lens, it is burning cash, right? But yeah, so in that respect, some people say, well, it's worthless because it doesn't make any money. But what is the long-term value, right? And that gets into the spectrum of, okay, well, SpaceX is worth X. ASTS, people are thinking is going to be worth over 100, 150 billion. What do you think the long-term applicability is of Neutron? What do you think the long-term applicability is of the space constellations that they're going to be able to provide? What do you think the long-term applicability is of the satellites that are going to be able to provide for the Space Development Agency? How frequently are they going to be able to provide those things? So I don't know. It's an interesting thought. I see both perspectives of why people think it's overvalued. But I had this conversation with Vince when we had the opportunity to sit on a couch and really talk through it. And I think there's a huge barrier of entry, and unfortunately, a lot of people fall out and don't make it to a place where they can establish a cadence. And Rocket Lab's been able to launch a small vehicle 70 times, and they're going to be able to launch the medium launch vehicle, and they're going to be one of 2 companies that really has a very successful medium launch vehicle, in my opinion, once they actually get that going. And in my opinion, they will be the first to probably land. Actually, not say probably, I will retract that. They will be the first to land a fully reusable vehicle that was designed day one, right? Now, of course, the Falcon 9 is reusable, but it wasn't reusable day one. So I think that's a huge step in the right direction. And I think that's a big feat that needs to be to iterate. So sorry, it's a long-winded 4 or 5 minute answer, but I truly hear people, and I had this conversation with Arnie and Amir at dinner on Wednesday evening, and they were like, well, I don't understand, why it's valued the way it is. And I think that's a way to kind of simply put it, right? A lot of companies have failed, and even Firefly, it's valued at $5-6 billion, and a lot of their missions have been failures. And so you have a company that has had 70, almost all successful, 95% successful missions out of those 70, and is about to launch a medium launch vehicle that's fully reusable and a successful satellites business, and is the one that has made Firefly so successful from a lunar landing perspective. I don't know. To me, it's a no-brainer.
Yeah, awesome. Okay, so we go to the next one. The small news of it looks like there is life on Mars. I wanna play the clip from the NASA administrator and what he said. Is there sound?
Perseverance. This mission to Mars under President Trump's first presidency. And a year ago, we found a sample, and it was, again, we're exploring in places where there were rivers and where there were lakes. And much as on Earth, we think that that's where we'd see signs of ancient life on Mars. And so a year ago, we thought we found what we believe to be signs of microbial life on the Mars surface. And so we put it out to our scientific friends to pressure test it, to analyze it, and go, did we get this right? Do we think this is signs of ancient life on Mars? And after a year of review, they've come back and they said, listen, we can't find another explanation. So this very well could be the clearest sign of life that we've ever found on Mars. So we're talking about Perseverance.
So that's one thing, and obviously, if there is things on Mars that could be life, then it reignites the question of like, okay, we should get those samples back home ASAP so that we can check them, and then reignites the whole Mars sample return mission. And I want to show you guys. Here is an Ars Technica article where they are writing the answers that was asked from the NASA acting director. So what's the latest on NASA's plan to retrieve the samples from Perseverance? As Marcia Dunn, a reporter with the Associated Press, about small vials of rock collected by NASA by the NASA rover on Mars. So listen, we're looking at how we get this sample back or other samples back, Duffy replied. We're going to do this. What we're going to do is look at our budget. So we look at our timing and, how do we spend money better? And, what technology do we get the samples back more quickly? And so that's the current analysis that is happening right now. So I want to be really clear that, whatever. Okay, that's not relevant anymore. So, I feel like the NASA Mars sample return is definitely back on the map. And the fact that NASA is looking at how they can do it better, cheaper, how they can spend the money in more effective ways has Rocket Lab written all over it. Rocket Lab has been very, very active posting about their renders and, ideas about the Mars orbiter, which is the first stage of the Mars sample return mission. And again, when the lawmakers, because the Mars orbiter would be awarded whether or not the sample return mission happens, if the lawmakers have it in the back of their head that, okay, if we award it to Rocket Lab, then the Mars sample return, if it ever gets approved in the future, will be compatible with the Mars orbiter. It's a huge plus point, I believe, for Rocket Lab. So what do you guys think? How real is this cycle, and how big of a contracts are we talking about here?
I'm curious to see, like, if it's going to be more or less on par with what we were originally expecting. And just kind of as you were explaining it too, like, I'm almost concerned, for lack of a better term, of like, kind of in the way that we see SDA not just being one customer only, but it's like several customers that are kind of building a constellation altogether. I'm almost wondering what happens if Rocket Lab's pushed so hard for this Mars orbiter now, that I worry that they might kind of push themselves and be like, oh, we can't give you all the Mars contracts. Like, you can't do both. But it'd be interesting to see how that kind of plays out. I mean, that would be really cool if we go from Escapade to the orbiter to collecting this sample altogether. Like, that's really cool. And not to like dunk on SpaceX or anything, but it would be a little bit almost ironic doing all this stuff on Mars before the, Mars company SpaceX does. But be interesting to see how it plays out. What are your thoughts, Maddie? How do you think it's going to play out?
What was specifically the question?
I mean, like, do you think Mars sample return is fully back on the table? And if it is, like, how big contracts do we get from it, and how it plays out?
Yeah, I mean, my thought was never that it ever went away. It was always just kind of and I've stood by this for quite some time. It was just always going to be, handled under a different way or paused. And I think that the thought process around how it was going to be handled was just how. When I think that they stated it was it in the December timeframe last year. I forget what it was, but basically that it was just going to be handled in a different manner than I think everyone was kind of anticipating. The large, potentially $4 or $5 billion contract or what have you. So I still think that there's an opportunity to potentially bring things like that home. I don't know necessarily what the opportunity is, but I think it's interesting thoughts around how it could potentially work. There's a multitude of different ways, and I think if anybody has the opportunity and the legacy to kind of understand what it could look like, it's Rocket Lab, and why I say something like that is Rocket Lab has actually helped build components for one of the only or the only vehicle that has flied on another planet. And what do I mean by that is, so the Ingenuity helicopter that was part of the Mars Perseverance that landed, the vehicle that they were just talking about that took samples, that solar panel obviously was provided by Solero, which is obviously now an acquired company by Rocket Lab. So obviously Rocket Lab itself didn't provide it, but Solero did. And so then by the time that Solero was acquired, the mission was kind of already launched by that point. But even still, it's like they have that legacy sort of information and ability to help provide opportunities, and some of that stuff has been acquired in-house. And so you think about it, they kind of have a leg up. They helped design and worked with JPL to be able to build some of these things. And so who better else than to potentially get an opportunity to build or create or bring some of these samples home than somebody who's already been to Mars. And so and will be, probably already have a leg up on solar panels, right? You think about it. They already have solar panels on the James Webb Telescope. They already have had solar panels on Mars. So who else? I know that there's other opportunities and things like that, but that and other pieces like software and hardware and everything like that need to be implemented to be able to get this MTO with a Mars sample return piece off and up and running off the ground. But truly think that they have a leg up on a lot of different people. In terms of the size of the contract, it probably starts with a B, but I don't necessarily know if all that capital would go towards Rocket Lab specifically. But I think the benefit is now that Rocket Lab is a prime contractor for a lot of different things within the U.S. government, it allows them to really dictate and work with whom they want, which I think is beneficial, because in the past, Rocket Lab was a subcontractor for, unfortunately, a lot of these projects, and so they were more at the mercy of other people. And so hopefully in the future, Rocket Lab will be able to be the one that dictates the pace and the objective of some of these missions going forward.
All right. So now we go over to another piece of news that I'm sure none of you have heard. So SpaceX went on a shopping spree, and they bought $17 billion of spectrum from EchoStar, which very ironically resulted in EchoStar canceling the contract with MDA, and that was a contract that we were very disappointed that Rocket Lab didn't win. So I guess in hindsight, that was a huge win that Rocket Lab didn't get that contract because it got canceled anyways. And this has quite a few ramifications. So ASTS stock tanked after this because obviously SpaceX is going more aggressively after the D2D market. This also makes it harder for others to enter into the satellite D2D market. So that's one ramification. The other ramification is that SpaceX is sort of listed on the stock market and you can invest into it because as you can see, the deal was $17 billion, 8.5 billion was in cash and 8.5 billion was in stock. And as far as I remember, the value of EchoStar before this transaction was about $30 billion. So like 1/3 of the company is basically SpaceX stocks. And that is by far the best that you can get today to publicly invest into SpaceX. The currently existing revenues are like you can invest into Google, which owns, I believe, 1% SpaceX. And there's another fund that has some SpaceX, but this is the most concentrated SpaceX that you can currently achieve in the market. And I just want to show you guys a video by Elon Musk where they actually interviewed him about this spectrum buying on the All In podcast and what he had to say about it.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Is there sound and is it working?
Yeah, there's sound.
There's sound and you see the screen. You see the All In Summit.
Yeah.
So couch change to enable your satellites and the Starlink network to connect directly with phones. What will that look like in a year or two? Are we going to drop our Verizon account and just expand our Starlink account? We're kind of hoping because Verizon kind of sucks.
How many of you want a Starlink phone?
Who wants a Starlink phone?
Oh.
Is it technically
Elon,
possible?
I know you can't see it, but it's everyone.
Yeah, it's everyone.
All right, cool. This is a kind of a long-term thing. It will allow SpaceX to deliver high bandwidth connectivity directly from the satellites to the phones. But there are hardware changes that need to happen in the phone. So since these frequencies are not supported in current phones, the chipset has to be modified to add these frequencies. And that probably is a 2-year time frame. So the phones that are able to use the spectrum that was acquired probably start shipping in around 2 years. And then we also need to build the satellites that are going to communicate on those frequencies. So in parallel, we're building the satellites and working with the handset makers to add these frequencies to the phones. And then the satellites and the phones will then handshake very well to achieve high bandwidth connectivity. But the net effect is that you should be able to watch videos anywhere on your phone.
Wow. And
From
it's going to be
Switch.
crazy.
And do these frequencies, would they work indoors inside buildings? You know, like your
Yes.
phone currently does? Okay.
And so will you be able to have basically
if you're in a building with a thick metal roof, then no. But
no, the same types of
normal homes. Yes.
Elon, is your vision for this that instead of having an AT&T account and then roaming when you're in the UK or you're in India, it's just we could have one direct deal with Starlink. It works all over the world eventually, not today, but at some point. Is that the end goal? That basically we don't need a regional carrier. We have a global carrier, and that would be you.
That would be one of the options. To be clear, we're not going to put the other carriers out of business. They're still going to be around because they own a lot of spectrum. So there's, but yes, you should be able to have a Starlink like you have an AT&T or T-Mobile, Verizon, or whatever, you should go, you could have a account with Starlink that works with your Starlink antenna at home for your Wi-Fi as well as on your phone, and it would be a comprehensive solution for high bandwidth at home and for high bandwidth direct to cell.
Could you buy some carriers to have more spectrum? Maybe you could buy Verizon?
Not out of the question. I suppose that may happen.
Let's talk about.
So he said, "Are you going to buy Verizon?" And he said, "It's not out of the question." Yeah. So I want to get your guys' view. Like, what do you guys think of this purchase, and what is the ramifications for Rocket Lab and the space industry in general?
I'm more curious. I'm more curious to see how this pans out for ASTS, because that's kind of been their whole thing of like, I don't know. Maybe Matty, you want to speak to this one? Maybe I know that you're very familiar with the ASTS group.
Hopefully, none of us get sniped on that we talk about ASTS. This is a very heavy charged topic.
Well, I think it just provides an opportunity, right? I think what people have always kind of viewed Starlink and SpaceX as a supplement, right? And looking at remote areas and ability to more so be, oh, you have this big dish, right? And no offense to the ASTS folks, I think this is actually a very valid point that they brought. ASTS, if you know, the big thing that they have talked about specifically is they talk about, more direct to phone, direct to device. And the problem with Starlink a lot of times is they talk about direct to the dish, right? So the dish has shrunk in size and everything like that. But with the collaboration now and the acquisition of EchoStar, it allows them to acquire great brands like Boost Mobile, as great of a brand as you think that is, but I think that might not be what people are thinking about, and Dish, right? Dish Networks. And I think that allows them to get into media as well. And so it almost provides an opportunity in multiple lenses where no longer are they specifically a kind of remote, access sort of company. They're actually establishing themselves as like an AT&T or Verizon, where they're kind of now differentiating themselves and gathering spectrum and now kind of establishing themselves as oh shit, these guys are really here to play, rather than just being like a supplemental service that you might be buying if you're living out in the woods and you have no other opportunity, to now being something where people can really nationwide, regardless if you're in a city or rural area, take advantage of that. And so it opens almost up, anybody can use Starlink or SpaceX product versus somebody that was maybe limited to a boat in the middle of the ocean or a plane, right? And I think that is a huge differentiator for me. That's something that allows it to kind of be interesting, and I think that allows them also to probably work with understanding how to get more into the direct to cell or direct to device market, whereas before, and this is the problem with what ASTS has kind of been faced or kind of saying as a problem with Starlink, which is, hey, no longer is Starlink going to be a direct to sort of like a big satellite thing. They're actually going to be direct to device, which is now directly competing with the ASTSs of the world. So I think that is probably why you've seen a problem with that. The thing, or a problem for ASTS, and why you saw the stock kind of go down. The thing that I'm kind of curious about, and somebody just put this in the chat, is I've also noticed that Starlink is trying to trial out with lasers, and I'm curious what that does as well, because as this is a point that I've tried to make, is with lasers you don't need spectrum, and I know people always argue you need spectrum, but with lasers you don't. And I'm kind of curious if Starlink is trying out lasers and Rocket Lab's focusing on lasers, who else is going to look at lasers 10 years down the road? And Is that also going to be something that's used potentially for direct to device or something of the like, right? Maybe not directly to your device per se, but direct to, say, a local tower or something like that, which then relays that tower to your device, right? Which is probably still going to be faster than what was probably done with radio frequency in the past, right? Because radio frequency is somewhat slower than the other opportunities. So I don't know. I'm still very massively undereducated on a lot of these things, but I can see where there is problems arising for the competition. But Verizon's still a big company, so I don't know if the people saying that him buying Verizon is pretty funny. But I think it's a bigger point than people might be thinking. I think a lot of people are just like, oh, he's getting it together, Spectrum, but really, I think it gives them access to a whole laundry list of additional customers that really leapfrogs him up against the subscribership that he had just a couple months ago.
I'm curious too, because there was a mention that it's going to take 2 years for, I think the word he uses, like the chips to be in the phone to be compatible with the Spectrum that they just bought. But like, do you guys happen to know, is that like I'm seeing that the Spectrum that was purchased was AWS 4 and H block. That's foreign to me what that means. But like, for example, if you have a chip in the phone that's compatible with S-band, does that mean it's compatible with all S-band? Or like, and really what I'm driving to is like, once like if SpaceX, do they need to go to Apple and say you need these S-band chips in, and then anybody with S-band can get in? Or is that like, what if Apple decides no more S-band? Is that like SpaceX out of luck? Or like, do you have to build your own phone?
That is a great question. I think it's a receiver. No, it's not necessarily a chip that they need. It's more like to be able to receive those frequencies and communicate on the phone.
Because I'm wondering, like, if SpaceX just paves the way and then Rocket Lab acquires S-band, is that like, is all the heavy lifting kind of done in terms of the communication that they'd have to have with like the hardware manufacturers? Or I'm wondering how that will kind of work out, maybe even in Rocket Lab's favor.
That is a super good question. What I was shocked about is that if Rocket Lab would want to go into this, like clearly you need to buy frequency if you're not going with the lasers. And then you have all this added time of possibly making the phones compatible with your frequency. And I'm like, does Rocket Lab have the wherewithal to go into such a, because I mean, $17 billion is not chump change for Rocket Lab.
Mm-hmm. And EchoStar, they actually sold more Spectrum on August 23rd, an additional $23 billion worth. So if Rocket Lab is looking at like, yeah. And so if Rocket Lab's looking at like any sort of Spectrum, is that what we're looking at, is like $15-20 billion a pop? Like,
yeah, but you realize that's just the Spectrum. Then you need to like launch and like pay for the satellites. And it's like you buy the Spectrum, then you need to make the phones compatible, which is like many years while you're launching the satellites, and you have to exist the whole time. It's like crazy crash burn. And you know, maybe then it's like easier for Rocket Lab to go to another already existing, like somebody who has a Spectrum, and say, okay, let's merge, and you know, we have the keys to space, and we can give you the satellites, you give us the Spectrum. And that would be one way that they can skip having the Spectrum. But for example, at current valuation, you would give away, what is it, like 60% of Rocket Lab to buy it.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see how that plays, like in Rocket Lab's favor, or maybe even against them. Or
and then another question: if Spectrum is so valuable, like did that make ASTS, because they own Spectrum, like more valuable? Like because I was wondering. Yeah, Okay, so Matt, any final comments on this one? You're basically sure that it will go into laser communication, and then you can skip having spectrum.
I'm not sure of anything. I just I'm just curious, right? I've seen SpaceX advertising the laser. I've obviously seen Rocket Lab focus in on that. I don't know yet what exactly is going to happen with that. Is that specifically going to be for business to business? Is that eventually going to be, consumer led? I don't know. I'm not 100%.
Yeah. And keep in mind, we don't know for sure that Rocket Lab is going into the D2D market, and we don't know what their satellite constellation is going to be. My guess is that first it's going to be some type of a defense military constellation first. But we did see that Rocket Lab does have an interest in this. It's quite a big bite to chew, I feel like, when we're reading these numbers and getting this information. All right. So that was all the Rocket Lab news for the week, and there was a very interesting space company that reported earnings and then was up 48% on that day. By the way, EchoStar, when SpaceX announced this deal, I think was up like 70% in one day. So that's pretty crazy. There was some wild movements this week. But Scotto, you follow Planet Labs very much, so I was thinking maybe you could do the honors and tell us like what happened and why the stock is up, and if this is warranted or this is a value trap.
I mean, I don't know. Like, I have my reservations about Planet Labs. I have my reservations about like citizen surveillance kind of in general. And I'll even include Palantir. I know you guys are Palantir bulls, but it's kind of like a realization that the technology is like very, very important, but that there can be a second edge to that blade if in the wrong hands. That kind of an idea. So Planet Labs wasn't exactly inspiring. Maybe I don't know what it was, but I don't know. Just added just a few red flags in terms of like whose best interest they're really looking out for, that kind of a thing. So I don't have the most rose-tinted glasses exactly with Planet Labs, but like, you can give them the roses. Like it was a good quarter, like up plus 50% kind of a quarter. I don't think so, but I mean, they're trending in the right direction. I think previously they were guiding for full year of like 14 or so percent, and that's like 16% now. Their margins and adjusted EBITDA is still trending in a positive direction, but and backlog especially as well. It's up 40% quarter over quarter, 200, we'll call it 250% year over year. So it's like it wasn't like a nothing quarter by any means, but maybe it's a little bit like looking a little bit prettier than it otherwise might have. And I think that's largely to do with the operating cash. Let me just double check my numbers here before I say the wrong thing. So within the quarter, they had $74 million of revenue. And within the quarter, they had, where are we? Of course, I lost it now. I think they had like 80 some million dollars in operating cash. So more operating cash than they had revenue. And I think that's maybe the comparable that is kind of getting the market as hyped as they are, is like, it looks really good in terms of like free cash flow and adjusted EBITDA. But then if you kind of bake in the forward expectations of that, it's maybe not so hot. And then if you really wanted to get in the weeds and kind of do like a side by side comparison between Planet, Black Sky, and Spire, you'll see that Planet is trading quite rich. I mean, it was trading quite rich before this earnings print, and now it's just like kind of crazy. And if you scroll down and then so I mean, there's there's like some of the obvious stuff like price to sales, but even if you kind of go one level deeper, it's like if you kind of look at most of the
Is
valuation
this
metrics. Yeah.
is this pre or post the jump?
That's post the jump. So what you're
Okay.
seeing there, let me just double check again. Yeah, so what you're seeing there is basically the Q2 results reflecting the current share price as we were in Q3. So that's, or sorry, I mean, it is kind of like Q3 expectations based or like tied with the current share price for Q3. So the Q2 just came out, and that's where it was trading as of Q2 end. And then the price that you see on the most right-hand side, like the price to sales of 10, that's the current valuation. So it's like if you're looking kind of at their competitors, they're trading at like a 50% discount pretty much. So
Yeah.
I mean, congrats to Planet shareholders, of course. Like that's nothing to scoff at for sure. But proceed with caution, I guess.
Okay, cool. Matt, do you follow this stock in any meaningful extent?
Oh, it might be.
Yeah, Matt, we didn't hear you if you said anything.
He might be froze.
I don't think he's frozen, but I don't know. He's muted. I see that he unmutes and then it remutes. Okay, well, we move on. Oh yeah, that was actually all that I had for this week. So yeah, I don't know if the audience wants to ask us any questions or if you guys want to comment on anything else that happened this week that you think is good. I think Matt is having some technical issues. Somebody said that he looks like the Starship landing, like burning orange. So maybe he's in the phase of the landing where, the internet connection is very unstable. Okay. Scott, anything you think is noteworthy?
Actually, yeah, there was a Redwire announced that they're opening a new facility, and that facility happens to be in Albuquerque. So that's like same homeland as Solero, and Solero provides the solar panels to Redwire's Rosa arrays. So I think that's probably a sign of things to come, I would imagine, in terms of that partnership. So, I mean, that's not nothing. It's a 15,000 square foot facility. Company made blah, blah, blah. There is a mention, actually, that the site is intended to support work under a $45 million 5-year cost plus fixed fee contract with the Air Force Research Laboratory. In particular, their space vehicles to design, develop, and test prototype software and hardware for mission critical technologies. So that's going to be interesting to see if that is like kind of intentionally like wanting to be closer to Solero, or if that just so happens to be where they wanted to set up camp. I'm not too sure.
All right. Okay, I think Matt is he went back to work.
All good. I see a question. No,
he says Vince just straight. I know he's back. Oh my god.
There we go.
Yeah, here is Matt.
I've been back here. I've been sitting in the background. You got rid of me. I don't know.
Normally there is like a sound when somebody joins the stream, and this time there was like no sound. But you went to a different camera angle now. That's pretty good.
Yeah, I don't know. It looks like the work camera just stopped working. I don't know why.
Overheated. Cool. So Matt, the last question when you disappeared was like, do you follow?
I said, I like the pictures. That's what I said. Yeah. I don't know.
I don't hear Matt. Do you hear him, Scott?
He's kind of in and out.
Wait. Technical issues, Matt. This
What about this
You're
one?
in
Is
this.
it-
It's
No?
almost like your internet is just going in and out.
What about this one? Does this one work?
I hear you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No?
Yeah, now it's good. Now it's good.
Yeah.
So I think the last
That's
question
cool.
to you was if you follow Planet Labs at all.
Because my microphone just hasn't worked. So I don't know the stock, but I like the pictures because obviously they are mostly Earth observations. So
Okay, the audio is not really working, or it's like very spotty for me. I don't know if it's just me.
A little spotty on my side as well.
Okay, I mean, we are. I think it's anyways a good point to end. Like, luckily, Matt's internet and mic and camera worked basically through 98% of the show. So I saw somebody was asking if when do we think Neutron is launching, and Sir Peter Beck said that if need be, he will be there on Christmas Eve and New Year's Eve at the last hour to make sure that it launches. And I believe him, and it feels like it's if all the tests and everything goes as planned, then it's a real plan. But if they find an issue with anything, then it will have to be delayed and moved into next year. So it's tight, but I think there's a chance that it will happen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm in the same camp. Yeah, late this year, early next year.
Yeah.
All the same, really. Yeah.
Cool, guys. Somebody's asking if you have been trimming again on Rocket Lab.
No, I think the last time I trimmed it was at 53. So I haven't trimmed anymore, and yeah, I don't have any plans to. I mean, kind of like overall, like especially after Friday, I took a quick glance and I was like, okay, I don't know what happened, but everything was up quite a bit, and it's just kind of one of those things. Like I'm not calling a top by any means, but it's kind of one of those things where I'm just kind of like, all right, everything's seeming a little bit stretched. Maybe I should kind of just trim across the board. But no, I haven't bought, haven't sold, no plans really. I mean, outside of like, I keep meaning to add to Shift 4, and it just hasn't quite got to. It's like dancing with like a price target or how do you say, like a trigger. So I'd like to buy more Shift 4 anyway. But yeah.
All right. Cool. Well, thank you guys for being here. Thank you for the audience for being here, and may your sky stays blue and your stock stay green. And have a peaceful week, and see everyone next week.
See you guys.